Greetings and welcome to my YouTube channel where I speak out loud my philosophy essays. If you're new to this, these are master's degree level philosophy essays, and this is the second essay that I will be uploading. This one is define wisdom, explain why it is a virtue, and discuss how it can be gained. So we'll begin. Introduction. Wisdom is commonly associated with knowledge, sound judgment, and maturity. Yet none of these qualities alone is sufficient to define it. A person may possess extensive knowledge while making disastrous decisions, may exercise clever judgment in pursuit of immoral ends, or may be advanced in age without having learned significantly from experience. Wisdom must therefore involve more than the accumulation of facts or the possession of technical competence. It concerns the capacity to understand what matters, to deliberate well about human life, and to act appropriately in complex circumstances. This essay argues that wisdom is an integrated excellence of understanding, judgment, and character. It includes knowledge of relevant facts, awareness of the limits of one's knowledge, sensitivity to moral value, and the ability to apply general principles appropriately within particular situations. Wisdom is a virtue because it enables a person to live and act well, regulates the use of other capacities, and contributes to both individual and collective flourishing. However, wisdom cannot be gained simply through formal education or prolonged experience. It develops through critical reflection, moral habituation, dialogue, practical experience, intellectual humility, and sustained engagement with difficult decisions. Wisdom is therefore neither purely theoretical nor purely practical. It is the cultivated ability to perceive reality accurately, evaluate ends responsibly, and respond to circumstances with proportionate judgment. Defining wisdom. Any satisfactory definition of wisdom must distinguish it from knowledge, intelligence, expertise, and cleverness. Knowledge concerns the possession of true or justified beliefs. Intelligence concerns cognitive capacity, such as the ability to reason, solve problems, or identify patterns. Expertise concerns highly developed competence within a specialized field. Cleverness involves finding effective means to achieve a chosen objective. Wisdom may incorporate all of these qualities, but it cannot be reduced to any one of them. A technically knowledgeable person may understand how to construct a financial system, influence public opinion, or develop a powerful technology. Such knowledge does not determine whether the system is just, whether the influence is legitimate, or whether the technology should be used. Similarly, a clever person may be highly effective at achieving selfish or destructive objectives. Wisdom requires the evaluation of ends as well as the selection of means. It asks not only how can this be done, but also should this be done, why does it matter, and what consequences follow for those affected. The ancient Greek philosophical tradition provides an important distinction between theoretical and practical wisdom. Aristotle uses the term Sophia to describe theoretical wisdom, and phronesis to describe practical wisdom. Theoretical wisdom concerns knowledge of fundamental or universal truths, whereas practical wisdom concerns deliberation about how human beings ought to act. Sophia seeks understanding of reality at its highest level. Phronesis concerns good judgment in situations where action is required and where certainty may be impossible. Practical wisdom is especially important because moral life cannot be reduced to the mechanical application of rules. General principles such as honesty, justice, and compassion guide action, but circumstances determine how these principles should be interpreted and balanced. Complete honesty may sometimes conflict with protecting another person from unnecessary harm. Compassion may conflict with fairness. Loyalty may conflict with public responsibility. The wise person recognizes which considerations are morally relevant, understands their relative importance, and reaches a proportionate judgment. Aristotle therefore treats practical wisdom as the capacity to deliberate well about what contributes to living well as a whole. It is not merely the ability to achieve a particular objective efficiently. A skilled strategist may deliberate effectively about winning a conflict, but this does not establish that the conflict is justified. Practical wisdom evaluates action in relation to the good life rather than merely in relation to immediate success. Contemporary philosophers have also emphasized the relationship between wisdom and epistemic humility. Wisdom includes recognition of the limits of one's knowledge. Socrates is traditionally associated with the claims that his wisdom consisted partly in knowing that he did not possess the knowledge claimed by others. This should not be interpreted as glorifying ignorance. Rather, Socratic wisdom involves an accurate awareness of one's epistemic position. The wise person neither pretends to know what is unknown, nor treats uncertainty as a reason to abandon inquiry. Wisdom is the stable capacity to understand what is significant, recognize the limits of one's understanding, deliberate responsibly about worthwhile ends, and act with sound judgment in particular circumstances. This definition contains at least 5 elements: knowledge, understanding, humility, evaluation, and action. Knowledge supplies the factual basis for judgment. Understanding identifies relationships, causes, and significance. Humility prevents unjustified certainty. Evaluation distinguishes worthwhile from unworthy ends. Action translates judgment into conduct. Wisdom is deficient when any one of these elements is absent. Wisdom as understanding rather than information. Wisdom is more closely related to understanding than to the mere possession of information. A person may know many individual facts without grasping how they are connected or why they matter. Understanding involves seeing relationships between events, causes, principles, and consequences. It permits the agent to situate particular facts within a wider explanatory and evaluative framework. This distinction explains why wisdom cannot be measured simply by the quantity of information a person possesses. Modern societies provide access to enormous quantities of information, yet access does not guarantee sound judgment. Information may be fragmented, misleading, or detached from context. Wisdom requires the ability to discriminate between relevant and irrelevant information, reliable and unreliable testimony, immediate and long-term considerations. Knowledge may tell a person that a particular decision is legally permissible. Wisdom asks whether it is fair. Knowledge may establish that an action is financially profitable. Wisdom asks whether the profit justifies its social cost. Knowledge may show that a statement is factually correct. Wisdom asks whether, when, and how it should be communicated. Wisdom is therefore interpretative. It concerns the meaning and significance of knowledge within human life. This does not make wisdom subjective or irrational. Wise judgment must remain responsive to evidence. However, evidence does not interpret itself. The agent must determine whether facts matter, which interests deserve consideration, how competing goods should be balanced. Why wisdom is a virtue. A virtue is generally understood as a stable excellence that enables a person to think, feel, or act well. Wisdom qualifies as a virtue because it perfects rational agency. It enables individuals to orient their conduct towards worthwhile ends and to respond appropriately to complex situations. First, wisdom is a virtue because it guides the exercise of other virtues. Courage, for example, is admirable only when directed towards a worthy object and exercised in an appropriate manner. Excessive fear may produce cowardice, but insufficient fear may produce recklessness. Wisdom enables a person to distinguish courageous action from unnecessary risk. Similarly, generosity can become wastefulness, loyalty can become complicity, and confidence can become arrogance. Other virtues require judgment concerning when, how, and towards whom they should be exercised. For Aristotle, practical wisdom and moral virtue are mutually dependent. Moral virtue shapes the ends towards which a person is directed, while practical wisdom identifies the appropriate means and actions through which those ends can be realized. A person cannot be fully virtuous while systematically misjudging how to act. Good intentions are insufficient where they are combined with persistent irresponsibility or ignorance. Second, wisdom is a virtue because it regulates human power. Knowledge, intelligence, and technical skill increase what an agent is capable of doing. Wisdom determines how these capacities ought to be used. A highly intelligent person without wisdom may become more effective in pursuing destructive goals. The danger lies not in intelligence itself, but in intelligence separated from moral judgment. Kant similarly argues that talents of mind, including intelligence, wit, and judgment, can become harmful when directed by a corrupt will. Wisdom is valuable because it does not merely increase capability, it governs capability. It helps ensure that knowledge and skill are used in accordance with defensible ends. Third, wisdom contributes to human flourishing. Flourishing does not consist merely in pleasure, wealth, status, or professional success. These goods may be valuable, but they can conflict, prove unstable, or become destructive when treated as ultimate ends. Wisdom helps the agent understand how particular goods relate to a life considered as a whole. A person may achieve occupational success while neglecting health, relationships, and moral responsibility. Another may pursue immediate comfort at the expense of long-term development. Wisdom enables the agent to evaluate priorities across time. It introduces perspective into decision-making and resists the tendency to confuse immediate desire with enduring good. Fourth, wisdom is socially valuable. Human beings make decisions within families, institutions, and political communities. Poor judgment may therefore harm others as well as the decision maker. Leaders, professionals, and public officials require more than technical expertise. They must understand the human effects of their decisions, recognize conflicts of interest, and remain accountable to those affected. A medically knowledgeable practitioner may still lack wisdom if they disregard the patient's values or communicate without sensitivity. A legally competent official may lack wisdom if they apply rules without regard to context. A manager may achieve short-term performance targets while damaging trust and institutional sustainability. Wisdom is a virtue because it enables knowledge to be exercised responsibly within relationships and social systems. Finally, wisdom is a virtue because it incorporates intellectual humility. The wise person recognizes that judgment is vulnerable to bias, incomplete information, and error. This recognition encourages consultation, revision, and caution. Humility is not indecision or intellectual weakness. It is the disciplined refusal to claim greater certainty than the evidence justifies. Such humility is morally significant because unwarranted certainty can harm others. Individuals in positions of power may impose decisions while failing to recognize the limitations of their understanding. Wisdom moderates confidence by requiring openness to correction. It therefore protects both the individual and the community from dogmatism. So that's the end of this first part. I will make a second part for this essay. So thank you very much.